Okay, everybody, thank you so much. This is Tesla Today, and we have Mr. Jeff Lutz joining us
How you
like
doing?
every Monday, going really well. I love this topic, actually. There's two incredible topics that I think are kind of like opposite of each other. So the
hmm
main one is that actually you can buy a Tesla today for $27,000. So let's go through that concept. I mean, we've been getting hit quite a bit about how Tesla not being able to offer the subcompact car. This is not the subcompact car, it's a Model 3, but it's amazing that we can do this. And then secondly, there's all of this FUD that's still happening. I mean, clearly the competition is coming, but it's actually Tesla that is coming after the ICE cars, and they're getting pretty scared, and the media as well. So welcome, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Great to be here.
Okay, let's get going. So this is kind of the first kind of article that I know Omar talked about it last week, but it's pretty interesting. So basically, in California specifically, right? So this is in California. They have a new state kind of a subsidy that they're offering called the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project for low income folks. And so now, when you do that, when you purchase a Tesla Model 3 at 42,990, that's before the options. Now you get the $7,500 federal tax credit. And then if you add the CVRP, it will be 30,900. Now, and if you then, which is very, very competitive already. And then if you then add the estimated 6-year gas savings of 4,200, that's how you get the calculation of 26,790. So in the Model Y long range, that also, if you do all the same thing, it'll bring it down to 37,540. So that's just 37,590, which is incredibly, incredibly, incredible good. So this is a CVRP. It's for $2,000 rebate if your gross annual income is $135,000 for single filers, and that's not low income. Where did this low income come from? $135,000 for single filers, $175,000 for head of holder filers, $200,000 for joint filers. Applicants with household incomes of less than that or equal to 400% of the poverty level are also eligible for an additional rebate of $2,500. So even when you are even much less, then you got that. So this is good news, Jeff. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, and this is state by state. There's California's got great incentives. Obviously, the federal incentive kicked in this year, January 1st, and then multiple. First there was some concern, right, in terms of what would qualify, and then multiple models were added. So California does a great job incentivizing EVs. I think they're number one in the U.S. in terms of sales, and of course, it's a high volume, high population state. But I see other states coming on too. Oregon, multiple states, Illinois. Illinois had a $4,500 credit, a similar credit to this one, running as well through the end of January, and I believe they start multiple ones throughout the year. So that, in addition to the $7,500 tax credit, in addition to the price moves, that Tesla's been able to make. I mean, it makes a really, I mean, the way I like to think about it, and I have conversations with people, is price it out per performance. Like if you're into 0 to 60, price it out, model it for that. If you're into just mileage and range, price it out that way. And just, if you look at it, getting an equivalent performing car at that price point, what it would actually cost in ICE and what it would cost in other EV, and you're really left with very few alternatives, if any.
Yeah, I think we're actually at price parity today, which is
hmm
pretty incredible. And that's even before the actual gas savings. And I know that in addition to California, you can also get these subsidies in Portland, Oregon,
hmm
Oregon specifically. Sorry. Um, and we're sure that many other states and many other countries are offering this. So it's the death
It's
knell
great.
for ICE for sure. I think that this just says that it's going to happen even sooner than we realize.
Yeah, and then you just have the continued cost curve that the EVs are coming down, and just increasing supply, and the ability for OEMs to take their cost down. Now, Tesla has been the one that's been more predominant doing that. The Chinese have really come on there, but the Chinese are developing models at those price ranges at very low gross margins. So I believe Tesla's going to have a little bit of a different approach. And I believe when they do release that model, it will literally drive volumes that are equivalent to the rest of the portfolio. So it'll be a big step function when they introduce a model that's well below Model 3. But just Model 3 below 30,000 is very compelling.
They don't have to introduce a new model. I know they are, but you could take the Model 3, and this is before the revision to it, and it's going to be even lower cost. What is that going to look like now, right? So even the Model 3 itself can be sub 30,000. So, all right, there is a bunch of potential fake news. We don't know if this is real or not. It could be real. So let's talk about it. The first one is this potential for Tesla van at Giga Mexico. So this Mad Manx, I don't know who he is, or this person, I don't know if they're credible or not, but basically they're said that the Mexican government officials at the highest level have all but confirmed a Tesla factory. I think we agree that that's what we're hearing, but what he's now pointing out is that local reporting is that the factory will be making parts and a commercial vehicle. So what is expected? An optimized van platform that can be used for box vans, delivery vans, ambulances, commercial vehicles, people movers, similar to the Ford 450, and should work in the boring tunnels for what it's worth. So it's pretty big. The IRA provides a tax credit to $40,000 if the vehicle has a gross vehicle weight rating of 14,000 pounds, or 14,000 pounds, 14. What? Yeah, 14,000 pounds, right? Not kilogram. Yep. 14,000 pounds. And the Cybertruck is at 10,000. So parts could be shared. And then why Mexico? Well, this is the person's point, is that Mexico has a few things going for it. They're very close to Texas, to be able to Texas provide the battery cells. And because it's made in USA, the IRA provides a $45 a kilowatt hour. It's cheaper labor in Mexico, and there's lithium. So Mexico nationalized its lithium industry in September 2022. Largest reserves in North America, and the NAFTA allows the IRA sourcing requirements for the 7,500 tax credit. So the deal is likely to access that nationalized lithium in exchange for a massive investment in commercial vehicle and parts and factory. And meanwhile, Tesla enters a market with ASPs around $100,000. This is before the $40,000 tax credit, and likely at least a $9,000 battery tax credit. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, he's saying that the commercial van market is not small. I was talking to John Gibbs, and he was thinking that the van market is kind of small, but it's $300,000 a year, so there's a room for a massive factory.
Yeah, you know what I liken? We have this conversation too about the incentives again. I always kind of liken the EV transition to the standard phone to smartphone transition. And if you look at that, if you look at the costs, and I came from this industry, the cost to build those devices and to sell them retail and to sell them at full price would have been a less compelling option. So what happened? The carriers stepped in, and the carriers subsidized, subsidized both the price point on the shelf, and they actually subsidized advertising on TV, online, and print media, and so forth. So think of that model. Now think of the federal government, and think of EVs coming in, the corollary to the smartphone, replacing the standard vehicle or the standard ICE vehicle in this case, and look at the subsidies that are now coming in. I mean, it's going to be pretty compelling. Not only the subsidies going to the consumer, but they're going straight to the OEM, and that also happened, in the smartphone model as well. There was several different.
Really?
There were several different deals that happened, between OEMs. So there's just an interesting corollary. And when that industry ramped, that industry was literally doubling and tripling most years for the first 5 years of it. And then it really, it went from, the first couple of years of smartphones were, 10 to 20 million. And then it peaked up at 1.5 to 1.7 billion per year. So anyway, it's an interesting corollary. These announcements from Mexico, I would wait for Tesla to actually put the announcements out, because I'd be surprised that, certainly some things could leak and they could be real. But I'd wait to see, and I'd be surprised that, by the way, the Cybertruck, that weight is unknown. All the specs in the Cybertruck are actually unknown. So it'd be interesting to see when Tesla actually announces that.
Okay, very good point. Yeah, but these subsidies is just going to accelerate everything, like you're saying. So there's
it's an accelerated adoption. Think of last year. There were subsidies out there, but they weren't on this level. They weren't, they were nowhere near this level. So it's just going to accelerate adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, there's some more potential, news that we do not know is true, but this is from Tesla Scope, and I know that there was a back and forth between Omar and Tesla Scope to whether or not this is, worthy of explaining yet. But a lot of us have been waiting for Hardware 4 to come out, and so this is, a Tesla Scope saying that this is the first confirmed glimpse of the new cameras found in a newly delivered Tesla Model X with Hardware 4 on board. We know Hardware 4 is coming, but is it here already? So they're pointing out that there's a potential camera right here in the front light here, and then this is kind of a bigger view of this car, and then take a look at this camera over here as well. So there's the light there, there's potential light, and then there's this camera too. It's a side-facing fender cam that looks like that it's actually have a camera pointing backwards like it does now, but also potentially forward as well it does now. So these are unknown if they're real or not. Some people were saying that, oh, you can actually see the UCC sensors here. So what does that mean? Because there's obviously an old car. Some people are saying, hey, this the light, this is like, is this like, it looks like it's earlier in the summer versus the fall, or versus it's like the fall versus it being now. So this could have been a fake photo, but we don't know yet. But the reason why Tesla Scope is saying it's possibly true is because they've received multiple tips from people that they've already worked with before. So
Yeah, and you look at some of these. If you look at these, I mean, they would not be impossible for Tesla to do from an upgrade, but they would be pretty difficult, right? When you start dealing with the headlights and you start dealing with optics and the ceiling, that would be difficult for them to upgrade a hardware 3 to a 4. So part of that makes sense in terms of where some of the cameras are going. But again,
yeah.
I mean, I think we'll see more. Tesla does these upgrades; they just cut in, and we'll see more of these in the wild every week. I mean, every week a new lot of cars come out of the factory. I remember when I picked up my X, I picked it up 8 days after it exited final test in the factory. So it was in Chicago. So they're every week they're moving new lots. So we'll see when they come out. And again, as lay consumers, we don't know the marginal improvement from hardware 3 to 4. There's still there's still neural nets. There's still software work that they're doing on the current version of cars. We don't know how good that they're going to get, and we don't know the marginal improvement of hardware 4 yet either.
Yeah. Well, what we heard him say, Elon said, right, is that hardware 4 is going to be 5 to 6 times safer than a human, but hardware 3 would probably be 2 to 3 times safer than a human. So that's how he looks at it.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of fake news that you've been fighting, the FUD that's out there. This is real. So this is CNBC's 2 p.m. update for investors. They actually had this kind of a discussion where they talked about the recall, made a big deal out of it. This became national news across the US, but also in Canada and others. And they really treated it like it was real bad news for Tesla. You had Munger talking about BYD beating Tesla, and then Union. I mean, I don't know. They just really have it against that. So you said this is their update, a software update, and a 99-year-old investor talking his own book about how he sold 4.5 million shares of BYD, which they didn't talk about that he actually sold the shares. And that's kind of the write-up. So, and then you said this: when your mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, you cannot allow media FUD to flow without correction or serious recourse. We need to come back out there. And so you're fighting it every day. That this is your another snapshot you took of the CNN live talking about how recall is such a big deal. Yeah, that we saw that everywhere. And then we know that 99% of the vehicle recalls for Tesla since January were actually simple bug fixes before software updates. So this is getting very, routine. Now, this is the tweet you did, which I thought was fantastic. You're advocating for Tesla to go big on the claims of the safest vehicle in the world in event of a collision, and simultaneously the least likely to be in a collision, FSD software. The complete package on safety, not Volvo anymore. Why go so big? You said, well, you think you should be a social, TV, print, Elon, everything. Everybody should be going big on this. Tesla did the hard work on engineering already. Time to let the others outside of the bubble know. It's an amazing story when told would meaningfully accelerate the transition to sustainable transportation. Okay, it's not enough. Yeah, so you feel big, important about this. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I mean, and this is a hotly debated topic. By the way, I'm not advocating for Tesla to take all of their remaining free cash flow and spend it on it. I'm not saying that. what I am saying is sometimes what gets you to the point you're at isn't what's going to take you to the next level. And the other thing that we don't know is,
Mhm.
I know some of the counters to this argument is, well, their sales keep growing, so why do this? Well, the answer is well, could they grow faster with some sort of marginal outreach? And all I'm saying is like take it up, a fairly serious level. You've done very compelling, serious work as a company to produce body mechanics that are the safest. You had somebody drive their family, tragically off a cliff, and thankfully they all survived and literally walked out. Tell that story, because that story is not getting the impressions that it deserves. The Tesla body engineering is not getting the impressions it deserves. The full self-driving software, the collision per miles driven, even of comparable cars of comparable years of age, not getting the kind of publicity it could get. And what tell that story, because that does get the marginal. I mean, if you've got a family and you've got a choice between automobiles, and one is known as the safest in the world and one isn't, I mean, that's going to be a strong consideration. And plus, they look good, they perform good, they upgrade in software, they're EVs, they're the most efficient. So there's all these things. Why not put the safety story out there? And again, the counters I get as, well, look on the website. Well, people aren't hunting and pecking around websites and looking for blogs of things. Again, there's things I think we see inside of this bubble, and this bubble's not small, but it's small compared to the size of the world.
Well, so why?
And
What's your reason why they don't do that? So why aren't they doing more of this? I mean, it seems so logical.
yeah,
Why
well,
would
yeah,
Elon not want to spend more money, which is tiddly squat, really, at the end of the day, to promote this?
yeah. I think it's not a. I think it's a matter of when. I mean, Tesla recently became cash flow positive, in the black, over the last couple of years. And I think when you struggle and scrap for 10 years, 12 years to get to that point, I still think you have a lot of, and as a capital allocator, I'm very appreciative of their approach and their efficiency. And all I'm saying is I'm not telling them to do more TV commercials. I'm just saying tell the safety story in a way that gets many, 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 many more eyeballs and ears around it, not just on Twitter, not just pointing people to a website or a blog.
Yeah,
Really go out there, the Super Bowl commercial, get out there and really tell the story, because you've done all the work. You've done all
yeah.
the hard work.
I think that there's a timing to this, and they're going to do this really big time. And I think it's going to be the occupancy network. So once you can show that the car can no longer hit human or objects, static or moving, that and then it can do evasive maneuvers, they're gonna go big at that point, right? Like you got one time to go out and wow everybody, and I think that they're gonna do it. So that's just my only reason why I could think why they haven't gone big on this.
Yeah, it could be
Okay,
a matter of timing, performance, and just continuing to try to walk up the curve. And again, I'm not saying go and fight every single PR issue and every single battle from every single paper. I am saying make a few examples of people that are just blatantly not,
yeah.
telling the facts, but then
They
really get
should
out
fight
there and tell the
everybody.
safety story.
They should fight everybody. Why not? Go big. I thought that they said they hired a lawyer. They're going to go, sue people. And then it looks like there was a recent hiring recently. So that might actually get going.
Yeah, I mean, a
All
couple of few $100 million lawsuits would set the example pretty quickly, because Tesla's always on the
um,
defensive with that.
yeah. So one last point here was Tesla stock. So this article came out. Was it what is it? Investors Business, and they basically said as show EV giant hits break on China plant production. Yeah, and then they try to make that out looking like it's a really bad thing, and you're saying that's clickbait. They're just pausing Model 3 output for changeover to a new lower cost, higher gross margin version that won't command the clicks desired. So of course that's happening. Now
You
you're
know,
the
I
expert. You're the
Yeah.
person who knows the most about supply chain and manufacturing. So this reduction in China shifts, right? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you do this when you're doing line changeover. What you want to do is you want to get rid of the old material. You want to you want to take the line down in an orderly manner. You want to bring the new line up, and you want to run it at various levels of speed and velocity until you get it up to peak run rate. And you're doing that. You're getting the machines working at peak run rate,
Yeah.
and then you're also getting the labor working at peak run rate. So what
Yeah.
really happened here is it's not the factory put the, like, people think like it was, I went back and forth, like, you think it's a big Willy Wonka switch and they shut the whole factory down. Well, no, there's multiple lines in this factory. They took the Model 3 lines, they're pausing those, they're doing this changeover. The other stuff's still flowing out of the factory. Oh, there's all these sub-assemblies still being made in the factory. And then they're going to flip these lines on. They're going to have to ramp them up, so they're going to be slow. You'll see slow output. You won't see the new Model 3 version running at rate instantly. But it'll take them a little bit of time, but they'll, industry benchmark is usually around 4 weeks, so somewhere from 4 to 8 weeks to get the peak run rate. Depends on what amount of change that they've made, what degree of change they've made, but they'll bring the new lines up and they'll keep product flowing out.
I mean, this happens for every manufacturer, of course, but it's
Everybody
a
does
good
this.
thing. Yeah,
Everybody
it's
does
a very
this.
good thing
Everybody
to
does this.
continue to improve the line. Yeah.
Yeah, every line in every facility does not run 52. No line runs 52 weeks a year. The standard is somewhere between 46 to 50.
Yeah.
And then those remaining weeks are used for maintenance. Those remaining weeks are used for holidays, and that's how utilization is calculated. It's not on the 52-week calendar.
Good. Okay, we're going to continue this conversation with Coffee with Jeff. Jump on the next episode that's immediately right after this one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.